New assignment already? When will I ever catch a break? Oh. Well, this is going to be one heck of a video. It's been a year since Astral Chain released on the Switch. Looking back at it, I can say with the utmost confidence that it has stood the test of time as one of the most visually appealing and stylish games on the console. Why does it deserve all the praise it gets, and where exactly does it fall short? Let's conduct an investigation of Astral Chain. Developed by PlatinumGames, a company hailed for their excellent action games, Astral Chain was published by Nintendo in August 2019. It was in development for about 5 years, preceding the critically acclaimed Nier Automata, which hit the shelves back in 2017. PlatinumGames producer Atsushi Inaba stated that it was, and I quote, an evolution of the previous action games. The company also referred to the project as a synthetic action game. That's quite a bold statement, given the game was produced for a system that isn't really ideal for that ambition. But I digress. Following the success of Nier Automata, Takahisa Tora was brought on as the director of Astral Chain, adhering to the company's ethos of appointing multiple directors to breathe new life and give a different flavour to each project. The game was first conceptualized as one belonging to the fantasy genre, in a similar vein to a cancelled PlatinumGames project, Scalebound. Their initial vision was that players needed to use magic to tackle an onslaught of enemies. However, Nintendo suggested that the company base the game in a cyberpunk setting, as they felt it was more distinct. Astral Chain's setting drew inspiration from anime that shared the cyberpunk theme, such as Ghost in the Shell, the OG one, not the disgusting live-action film where Hollywood decided to spit on the material of Annie from the Nanny Diaries. World building was prioritized during development in order to shed light on how police tasks were handled on a daily basis outside of battling crime. As such, they developed a cast of interesting characters that occupied various roles in the police department. When comparing Nier Automata to Astral Chain, Tora said that the latter was different in how the core of the game was approached. Specifically, the world was formed around the gameplay and not the other way around. This brings me on to the main section of the video. You assume the role of a detective in the Neuron Task Force, tasked with investigating and eliminating an otherworldly threat in the form of chimeras. You utilize the powers of what is pretty much a dojo stand, a legion if you will, to combat the incoming threat. Said gameplay is split into two sections, investigation and combat. In a similar manner, the objectives of the game are categorized by blue and red cases, blue being the mandatory tasks needed to progress the game and the red hence being optional. You are deployed in various areas across the Ark, a living hub for the remaining human population. These areas are expansive in their own right and establishes the futuristic atmosphere of Astral Chain greatly. Players need to question local residents in the area you are in for leads on your target. Any keywords or phrases they mention in the statements are recorded in a virtual notebook. There isn't a time limit for this portion of the gameplay, so you're free to roam around and complete red cases. Despite that, finding the information you need can be quite tedious, especially in large areas such as Harmony Square. Running back and forth, scouring for information, isn't the most pleasant task, and is the least favourable portion of the gameplay. However, it does its job of building the world of the Ark. Players use the details gathered from civilians to deduce the identity of the target and its location, Professor Layton style. While it isn't very rewarding to complete this segment of a chapter, the gameplay more than makes up for its tedium. Tora, in order to differentiate the combat system from his other works, put emphasis on the synergetic action of Astral Chain. Heavy emphasis. As a Neuron officer, you are equipped with the X-Baton, which is certainly not your personal run-of-the-mill police stick. The weapon is accompanied by 3 styles that you can switch between freely during combat: Baton Mode, Blaster Mode, and Gladius Mode. These styles allow you to adapt under various circumstances, freshening up your combo palette, so you don't have to rely on just one string of attacks. Baton Mode is the best overall option for tackling the Chimera threat. Its sharp, smooth, and rapid sequence of blows encourages players to engage in frequent combos. They fare better against smaller enemies, but are not as efficient when dealing with larger foes. Blaster Mode is one of your only ranged options, and, as such, it doesn't deal as much damage as the other two modes. However, they are effective against flying chimeras and are fired in quick succession, so it's easier to rack up damage with foes that are out of reach for close quarters. Gladius Mode embodies the function of a two-handed greatsword, with slower but more hard-hitting attacks. You can break through enemies bearing shields with a few swings, making this style the ideal option for going up against tough chimeras. You gradually gain access to 5 different legions, each with their own functions and movesets on the field and in battle. With a single press of a button, you can unleash your legion to greatly assist you in combat. Legions usually attack by themselves, so players don't have a lot of control when it comes to using them. However, you can position them wherever you want in the designated area by holding down the button used to summon the legion and navigating with the joystick. This particular function is essential on the field for getting across platforms separated by gaps. Pressing ZR, the attack button, while positioning the legion can make you fly over to their spot with a forceful kick, whipping enemies along the way into a tailspin. Wrapping a legion around a foe can bind them, rendering them immobile and vulnerable to attacks. Occasionally, a blue glow shines forth from the chain. This presents you with an opportunity to perform a sync attack, if you time a ZR press correctly, which depicts you and your tethered familiar beating the living daylights out of a chimera. There are other ways to initiate this powerful sync attack, like at the end of a combo string, or by dodging at just the right moment. Sync attacks are a great way to deal heavy damage, and the stylish flair of these combos makes each time press feel rewarding, no matter how many you've pulled off. Each of the 5 legions have their personal set of skills and abilities, from buffs to attacks, which are especially handy in difficult situations. You start off with the Sword Legion, the most balanced in terms of offense. As with Baton Mode, this legion performs a series of quick strikes to rapidly decrease an enemy's health. One of its unique skills, Round Sword, summons an array of spinning swords that engulfs you, dealing extra damage when coming into contact with the chimera. Its special ability consists of slicing through energy waves to stun enemies, as well as barriers that serve as obstacles to your progress. You'll be using this one quite a lot, considering that it's a versatile legion. The other 4 that I want to mention, the Arrow, Arm, Beast, and Axe Legion, are suited to different situations on the field and during combat. Arrow is quick with projectiles, Arm is great for pure aggression, Beast is effective when used for quick combos, and the Axe Legion harmonizes offense and defense. They each have their unique merits, meaning you can opt for various playstyles depending on your preference. Whether you like to keep enemies at bay and whittle their health away with the Blaster and Arrow Legion, or get up close and personal with the Arm and Gladius combo, there's bound to be a legion that you're comfortable with. Some legions have stab boosting skills specific to them, and they carry over when you swap them out, so making use of all 5 by taking advantage of their abilities is the ideal tactic in difficult fights. With a fleshed out combat system comes a slew of methods that add depth to the gameplay. Legion Learning is the game's interpretation of a skill tree. Players allocate gene codes to unlock a node, offering plenty of improvements to your legion, from increased attack or defense, to a new skill, to an extra ability slot. Gene codes are acquired by defeating chimeras, but you can also obtain material codes by opening chests and completing tasks, which are used to rank up your legions. Skill trees almost always feel satisfying to fill out, rewarding yourself for progression. That kind of feeling carries over into Astral Chain, with a personalized skill tree for each legion that provides value to over 20 combined hours of non-stop action. What hinders the gameplay the most is arguably one of the game's most glaring issues, the camera. What more could you ask for besides fixing some issues with the game's camera? This is serious, I hate falling off the edge because of this, it drives me nuts. There's already a lot on your plate when going headfirst into a battle with the astral threat. Having to constantly take control of the camera to even get a glimpse of where the enemies are, especially the kind that loves to teleport everywhere, is downright frustrating. The issues with the game's camera leaves me susceptible to attacks that I can't dodge because I didn't recognize them fast enough. More importantly, I'll wind up falling over the ledge and into the abyss. It's certainly not a fun experience when it occurs more frequently than you want it to. My Legion takes pity by saving me from committing a Disney villain death, and in turn takes away a good portion of my health. In a situation where you're constantly bombarded by a horde of chimeras, accidentally falling off because the camera can't keep track of where you are is a big setback. You have the option to increase or decrease the camera rotation, alongside toggling a fixed camera for battles. Ultimately, however, the first option doesn't make much of a difference when you still have one more thing to manage, and a fixed camera makes it harder to acknowledge the locations of other cameras that pop up. Nonetheless, the camera doesn't entirely detract from the mostly enjoyable experience that is the gameplay. Combos are smooth, stylish, and surprisingly easy to perform. While it lacks the complexity of combos from other titles by PlatinumGames like Bayonetta and Nier Automata, it compensates with a great skill tree that encourages players to swap between legions for access to their abilities. As expected of the company, it does not fail in that department, but rather excels at creating synergetic action for players to enjoy. Before I continue with the story, this section of the video assumes that you've played the entirety of Astral Chain, or have no intention of doing so. If you are playing Astral Chain and have not yet finished it, I implore you to go to this timestamp. The following details will be full steam ahead for spoilers. A game of this caliber isn't complete without thrusting you into the action right off the bat. The protagonist and their twin sibling, Akira Howard, are called in to tackle an incoming threat from the Chimeras. There's an exhilarating motorcycle sequence where you dodge cars and gun down enemies, which sets the player up greatly for the next set of events. You and Akira are provided with legions by Yosef, the commander of the Neuron Task Force meant to repel the Aberration attack. Their 30-day free trial of life expires, and you are officially assigned as an officer at Neuron. Your first mission goes south when you wind up in the Astral Plane, the home of the Chimeras, and the rest of the team follows in order to rescue you. We then discover that staying in the Astral Plane for too long weakens you, which causes the legions to evade the control of the officers and go nuts. You manage to get yours back, but the rest are still in a frenzy, so your father Max sacrifices himself to buy the team time to escape as he fights them off. I know this scene is supposed to be emotionally stirring or whatnot, but he dies literally an hour into the game. There wasn't enough time for players to develop some sort of connection with Max, which softens the emotional impact. You do see more of Max later in the game, either through flashbacks where his colleagues reminisce, or through files that detail his experience with raising the twins. If we saw these before his death, I'm sure that it would have been more moving. You come back, and we discover that the production facility for the legions was destroyed. Being the only one with the legion in Neuron now, you're assigned to different areas across the Ark to tackle the threat, and as you go along, you encounter and capture the rest of the legions that went berserk. In your missions, you cross paths with Jena Anderson, a goth scientist who brought about the Chimera attacks. She almost kills Akira and manages to run away. You're then led to Zone 09, which is a quarantined part of the Ark and pretty illegal for those working at Neuron to enter. Accompanied by a talking drone named Hal, you investigate the mystery behind the aberrations and find out that humans are using a drug called Blue Evolve to enhance themselves in order to fight off chimeras. This game is basically a PSA for drug users because it has very bad side effects that kill you, that being, it turns you into an aberration. Up until this point in the game, it starts off relatively slow. There's not much going on, and compared to the latter section of Astral Chain, the first half is a bit underwhelming. That is, before you come across a homunculus belonging to Jena. The threat worsens until Akira shows up with a slick new suit and a legion to boot, and then you get thrown in prison for insubordination.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
While you relax in a nice, closed-off environment, taking a break from all of the life-threatening jobs, Jena the goth scientist decides to end your holiday in jail prematurely by using the Blue Evolve. This transforms her into female Sephiroth, and being the anime protagonist that you are, you confront the godlike aberration. This is where Astral Chain's story goes full throttle into its narrative, as well as the overall experience. After attempting to beat Jena, you somehow merge with your legion. As a frenzied monster, you attack Akira and are about to finish them off when they try to suppress the chimeric rage with their human words. This moment is pivotal in Astral Chain, both in terms of emotional impact and gameplay. You're compelled to wiggle both joysticks furiously, and that's quite a physically challenging task. The faster you do it, the more you resist the influence of the chimeras. Furthermore, it gives you a glimpse at a new gameplay mechanic involving the fusion of you and your legion. It's an awesome gameplay segment that we only see once in the game, and it is equally as powerful on the emotional side of things. I'm gonna set a plot twist count for the next part, because the final act of the story is filled to the brim of them.
Over here! I tried to warn you!
Jena suddenly becomes good for some reason, and sacrifices herself to restore the player back to being human.
Alright. Aim for the Legion. Fire.
Yosef shows up, this time as the game's true antagonist, and tries to kill the player. We also find out that the Ravens, the new task force for Neuron, are made up of Akira clones. Akira is attacked by the clones and has the ability to merge with their legion as well. You fight your sibling fused with your legion in one of the most epic sequences in the game. I'd honestly replay Astral Chain just to get to this part.
And now, upon this newborn core, I build my ark! Behold, the savior of all existence, Noah!
Yosef has an ulterior motive for the Ravens, in that he uses them to form the Ultimate Legion, and then proceeds to merge with it to become Noah, a being intent on consuming the world to reach godhood. Akira sacrifices themselves to help the player to destroy Noah, but it turns out that they survived via one of the clones with their memories extracted from the traces in the Legion.
But rumor has it, the Hermits have turned over a new leaf towards restoration efforts in Zone 09. Maybe they've had a little help along the way. You can never tell what Hal's up to.
In the aftermath of the climax, the player discovers that Hal, the robot that ditched you after Noah's defeat, teamed up with a guy named Kyle, the leader of a hacking group, to help the restoration effort in Zone 09. What the hell, PlatinumGames? The music for Astral Chain was primarily composed by Satoshi Igarashi, who also worked on the music for Bayonetta. That game set a very good precedent for what we can expect from PlatinumGames, and Astral Chain takes that up to the next level. Depending on a scene's atmosphere, the music style will change to correspond to it. Tense or action-packed scenes utilize a subgenre of percussive metal music called gent. The dramatic scenes tend to have orchestral music in the background for extra emotional impact, and the calmer sections of the game include music like the one you're hearing right now, which leans on the electronic genre. Igarashi, with Torres' assistance, acquired 2 vocalists for the game's main themes, one male and one female. This decision was meant to reflect the fact that Astral Chain's narrative centers on the dynamic of the dual protagonists. The male vocals are heard when you choose to play as the female Howard twin, and vice versa. It's a very interesting way to represent more genres of the music in the soundtrack, and breathe additional life into what there already is. The music is an absolute banger, as the cool kids say. Gent playing in the background whilst you dish out stylish combos really heightens the feeling of taking on enemies that could end a human's life in an instant. I could say the same for other genres of music and how they perfectly set the tone of a scene, whether it would be touching or downright peaceful. The addition of a choir in pretty much every major song in the soundtrack is just icing on the cake. Astral Chain's score is sublime, unsurprisingly, and excellently composed. Igarashi went all out with the music, so it's pretty disappointing to see that not many people appreciate the soundtrack. Music in video games that isn't a battle, victory or overworld theme tend to be kinda throwaway, in the sense that it does its job and there's nothing else to it. This game manages to make each and every track sound special, complementing the cyberpunk atmosphere greatly. As far as the main story is concerned, there are 11 files, or chapters, to seek and time into. There is, however, a secret 12th file that serves as the epilogue to the game. I mentioned that Hal never returned to Neuron, but instead partnered with the reformed hermits to help clean up the mess that the Chimeras made in Zone 09. Alongside his disappearance, it's revealed that Jin and Alicia put Neuron back into commission. Olive took up the mantle of commander after Yosef's death. Murray Wentz, who doubles as Neuron's janitor and its mascot in Lappy, signed up for a large role in the task force, and Brenda works with the ARI to find a way to branch out from the Ark and discover a new home for humanity in the lands beyond. In this file, you clear cases set by Olive to deal with the remaining chimeras. What I find weird about how the game handles the content after the story is that, where some mysteries are closed down, another begins. As you go through the cases, you encounter a few familiar faces. Kyle? He does enjoy the exhilaration of fighting, so... Jena? Wait, you mean to tell me that the whole point of her sacrificing herself to save my humanity was for nothing? Plot holes aside, the cases you are required to close in order to complete your experience of Astral Chain range from tedious to thrilling. Some of said cases simply involve tackling 3 waves of enemies in a linear environment, compared to the more conceptually interesting ones, like taking on hordes after hordes of chimeras on the Neuron HQ helipad. It caught me off guard that after I completed all of the cases shown on the select screen, much more appeared in its place. I can't say no to additional content though. Astral Chain really is a game that keeps on giving. These cases increase the longevity of the game by at least 10 hours, even if it is intended to be a short but sweet experience. The sheer amount of them is certainly an excellent curtain call to players who wish to see through the game till the end. And at the very end, there is one more case that Olive assigns you, marked with, well, question marks, that will surely provide a definitive end to what might as well be the company's magnum opus. Astral Chain is a magnificent action-adventure game that wonderfully fuses the addictive and stylish gameplay that PlatinumGames is known for, with investigative, latent-style elements to give players a thorough perspective of an officer's job. It may not have as complex of a battle system as the company's other IPs, but it provides depth where it's due through the use of legions. Its story starts off quite slow, but the pace really kicks off in the latter half of the game and cranks up the experience to 11. Each character feels diverse and likable in their own rights, even down to the NPCs scattered across Neuron. Their presence serves as a great means of fleshing out the world building of the game's setting, being the Ark. The soundtrack is composed almost to perfection, and Igarashi's decision to incorporate various styles of music as well as dual vocalists to represent the twins pays off really well. And finally, the post-game content offers much more content than you would expect in an epilogue, with hours of additional gameplay and a satisfying finish to boot that wonderfully rounds off Astral Chain. If anything, this game is a love letter to PlatinumGames, accommodating the very best aspects of their titles into an outstanding Switch game. Astral Chain protagonist for Smash please.